how you use them.
T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Biz Doc Podcast. We have got some very interesting stuff. We're sitting here going into the second week of March 2024. If you're listening to this or you're watching a year from now, we think there's still some things that are applicable here, applicable for your business, for your life, things that are going on. Just really, really crazy. You see the stock market's doing funny things. You see, baseball hasn't really started. The Super Bowl is in our rearview mirror. We're getting ready for NBA playoffs that are coming in a month, hockey playoffs. March Madness is here. Who's in, who's out, who's on your grid. But it's kind of a downtime for everything else. Like there's no big surge going on and the market's been kind of in doldrums. But there's a couple things I looked up that I like to go into this week. First of all, we got some very interesting, speaking of doldrums, we have some very interesting news on the box offices. And box office has had a really tough January. Looks like it was an even tougher February as we roll into March. And that's bad news for the movie business, or is it? And then we've got a case study on Snowflake. Snowflake, a partner of Nvidia, all kinds of storage, AI tools, and other things that you can do and put all your data for your company into Snowflake and allow multiple people to take advantage of it and to get learnings out of it and make your company run better. So first, here we go, the box office. So the COVID era aside, when we were all locked at home, and it turns out now there is no good reason to lock us at home, and it messed up kids going to school, it messed up progress on math, a lot of kids got messed up, and the rest of us just got pissed off, and so we sat home, went to the liquor company, and got really messed up. So now, what we have is box office is supposed to be back. We're all supposed to be enjoying ourselves, getting overpriced popcorn and a slushie and watching things with the big screen. But is that what's happening? Not really. January was the worst box office month in 30 years. Not 3 years, so you could go blame COVID. 30 freaking years. So you've got a lot of the new generation weren't even born yet. Everybody under 30 wasn't even born when this box office was going on. And I would argue everybody under 35, probably doesn't even remember, except 5 years old, your parents were taking you to movies, you were enjoying that sort of thing. My gosh. So now what? Then February, well, we got Dune coming, Dune 2 to be exact, Dune 2, it's going to be coming, and there's things going on here. Oh, it's going to rescue. You know what? They're not sure. They're not sure if Dune 2 is really going to do it. And now February also was the lowest month since September of 1997. So January, 30 years. It says February all the way back to 1997, which is 16 years, right? Holy moly. So you're talking right now, it's not a fluke anymore. It's a couple months in a row. Take a look at this chart. We're going to look at the chart. This is the gross, month-by-month gross, and take a look at this. And here's a moving average. So the purple line is the moving average, and the dots represent a bunch of movies that were in there. And so when you add up all the movies that are going on, Titanic and all these things where they made a bunch of money, look at this. First of all, you can clearly see COVID when, all those people in government erroneously or intentionally, pick a word you like, told us, go home, no movies. But we were able to come back outside in 2022, all the states opened up, everything happening, and we thought there'd be a bounce up. Well, there was, but it didn't get back to the peak. And look at July 23. See that little dot there? Barbenheimer. That's Barbie and Oppenheimer, which saved the tush of the movie production industry in July of 23. And beyond that, look at it. Everything's back down, and look at February 24th. Everything is bouncing back down. Yet, all those jobs are in the economy, things are going on, but jobs aren't what they seem. 6% of American full-time workers over the age of 25 have a second job. 6%. Because of inflation. Inflation could be because of Bidenomics or not because of Bidenomics. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. The facts are that's what's going on. So maybe people have less money for movies and they're streaming. So now everybody's asking, wait, why is this? Why aren't they back? There hasn't been any reason as to why they wouldn't be back. Well, a couple good movies come out. Barbenheimer, as they say it, Barbie and Oppenheimer, that just crushed the summer. Okay. So you've got that going on. And there's a couple things. So let's dive into it. I got curious. And so what is going on with box office? Can you just say streaming? No. Can you say you're out of superheroes? No. Although, take a look at this. This next chart, this shows superheroes. So take a look at that. When you've got all those Avengers and Marvel, superheroes coming out, look at that. And amazingly, but if you look at, this is basically 100% of all movies out there. This isn't the sales. This is share of box office. Whether the box office is $1 billion or $100 million in a month doesn't matter. And take a look at this. Contemporary fiction getting squeezed. Superhero was peaked out in 22 at, actually I think that's 21 to be exact, 21 to 22. Yeah, it's the full year from 21 to 22. Superheroes were 32% of the box office. And every superhero movie was a sequel or part of a series. Spider-Man 81 and all those kind of things that went with that. So take a look at that. So superheroes have now dropped off. And by the way, the last couple superhero movies didn't even do that well. So it's like, has America had its 10 years with the superheroes? You can see that lump there, the purple lump in the COVID dive and come back. Superheroes, but guess what? Superheroes are not saving the day right now. So, you also had, Marvel's Multiverse. I think that was 4 movies, Multiverse, and they've come and gone. And Sony Venom, the sequel did like $200 million. But the point is, look at this. Superheroes aren't going to save the day, and now there's fewer of those. So people say the answer is streaming, but I don't think so. I think that's part of it, but part of it is experience. So check out this next chart. This is an inflation chart. So bear with me just a moment. Let's do something interesting. So we've talked about, and this is a 23-year chart from year 2000 to year 2023. We've talked about college tuition up 185%. Medical care, housing up 100%, 97. New vehicles up 25%. Telephone services down 6%. Well, that's because you're getting more unlimited plans on your cell phone. So the service is down 6%. Computer software down 74%. You don't pay $250 for Microsoft Office anymore. You pay $15 a month and it includes email. But look at the bottom. Televisions down 98% since year 2000. So I got very curious and I said, well, hang on a second. Let me go back. And I found some stats in 7-year gaps. So right now, Q1 of 2024, if you go to Best Buy, you can get a Toshiba or Insignia 55-inch TV, with like a 1-year warranty, very nice TV, Amazon Fire built in, internet connected, 4K. So it's a 4K TV, so it, high quality. For $249, 55 inches, connected with apps, Hulu's built in, Amazon Fire is built in. Okay, $250. 7 years ago, I went and looked. So that would be 2017. I found an LG 55-inch, $2,700. There you go. Then I went back and I said, well, shoot, let me go back a little bit further. So I went to 2010. 55-inch Samsung in 2010, $34.99. Think about that. from 2017, 2024, $2,700, 10% of that is $270, and for $250, you can get the 55-inch 4K TV. So I think there's a couple things happening. During COVID, people picked up streaming more and have now stayed with streaming, number one. Number two, a 55-inch TV is $250. When you saw the riots and everything a couple years ago and people were stealing TVs from Best Buy, you're like, why steal the TV? It's only worth $250. How do you sell a stolen TV for more than like a Franklin, right? How do you sell it for more than $100? You probably don't. So steal something more valuable. You know, I'm not recommending theft, but I'm just saying. So now you have a much better experience at home. You've got streaming. And then I took a look, how much was a subwoofer? A subwoofer and a bar and two little speakers, a set, $99 at Best Buy. So you can get a subwoofer and a nice bar, put it right there with your TV, and get pretty good sound. So for $399, you can get a 55-inch 4K TV, a sound bar, a woofer, and some little, you know, left and right speakers, and have a pretty damn good experience. You know, and now you could spend a lot more than that for other types of speakers and stuff. I saw them, but I listened to this and I thought I listened to it myself. I said, you know what, that's perfectly fine. If I had an apartment or even a small house, I would say, if I had a house I was Airbnb-ing it, I would put this in there because I think that gives it a good experience. And guess what? It's not very expensive and people could enjoy it at my Airbnb. So I think what's going on here at the box office is a perfect storm of many things. Number one, tickets are still expensive. Food is still expensive. If you look what it takes to go to that box office for a family of four, look out, especially if you're paying the extra like $7, $10 for the 3D movie and put the 3D glasses on. So take a look at what you're paying for that family and then look at it. A family of four, it's gonna cost you $100. For $100, you could have the subwoofer and the speakers there from Best Buy at home. Go to the movies 2 more times, you've got a 55-inch 4K TV. So now the experience you could have at home is tremendous, really amazing. And so I sit down and I think about it and I'm like, I think you can get an experience at home and the theater is expensive and I got to drive to go to the theater. So you got to be careful what's going on. And the release windows are shrinking. And people like Amazon and Netflix have got new movies all the time that are interesting. So along with that, the quality of movies at the box office are kind of shrinking. Superheroes, the recent ones didn't do too well. So now you've got fewer great movies. Great experience can be bought at home for only a couple $100. The movies themselves are actually expensive and you don't have to leave your house to go do it. Now I love a good movie. Patrick and I love movies. We love going to them. And we've seen fantastic movies that you know, I kind of was sitting here trying to get through, like Straight Outta Compton. And then I went to Straight Outta Compton with Patrick and David. Yes, I did. And then there's movies we both go and watch and we felt emotional. Dunkirk, we saw Dunkirk. We thought it was a fabulous movie. How can you not be emotional about knowing that this is Hollywood's adaptation, but it is a true story and what happened in Dunkirk? What a story. And then you just go to a superhero movie and say, wow, that was really fun. Well, we love doing that, but I can't deny it. You know what? You know, I've sat at home with my daughters and I've watched some. So I think there's a lot going on and the box office can't be summed up, oh, it's just streaming. It's not. It's quality of movies. It's ease of getting it at home. There's a lot of things that are going on with it. And so I hope that unlocked your brain a little bit. Whenever you see a headline, dive into it. You know, see what's going on behind it. You may find out that there's more things than just one thing. And that is very much a subject of this case study. Today's case study is going to be on Snowflake. And I hope I'm going to unlock your brain so that you can understand applicability of a super high-tech company that had an IPO that gave it a value of $70 billion. I'm going to walk you through. And first, I'm going to unlock my brain with a vault. And all of you that know me know that my favorite flavor is black cherry, but there's also watermelon, cucumber mint. You can order them at Amazon. Get yourself a case. No sugar, no caffeine, and just the right amount of pop. So now I'm going to go down to Studio B and we're going to dive into Snowflake. All right, I found my board, my lovely board. Love it, love it. And I got my vault. Unlock your brain with a vault, just like I hope I unlock your brain right now with Snowflake. So what were we talking about? We're talking about AI. We're talking about storage. There's so many things going on. And not too many weeks ago, I did a case study on Nvidia. And if you go back and look at that one, I'm about to talk about Snowflake, which is an Nvidia partner, and you're about to see why and how. So what is Snowflake? People have heard about storage. Hey, what is an enabler for, AI? What does storage for AI mean? What does flip my data or dive into my data mean? Well, let's go take a look at it. So who is Snowflake? Snowflake, in short, is a cloud-based data warehouse called the Snowflake Data Cloud and analytics platform, and they let clients like you and me store, manage, and analyze our data in one place. Like data from multiple points of a company all comes together, like sales data, and finance needs to do this and make earnings reports. But marketing wants to know, where did those customers come from? And sales wants to know, how are my customers similar or dissimilar? Guess what? All of that can go into one Snowflake database, and all three could be in there working with the data to get answers and insights to run the business better and make better decisions tomorrow. So it's ideal for companies that need to scale quickly, or for those that have multiple teams like I just described that are processing data at the same time. The scenario I just gave to you would be real world, where you maybe have 3, 4, 5 groups inside of a company, finance and analytics for finance, and a forecasting group, and a customer service group, and maybe the head of sales, all have different questions they want answered from that same bucket of customer data. Snowflake would let them do exactly that. So that's what the company is and does. So what's going on with these headlines? Well, we're going to get to the current headlines and some things that are going on that may or may not be good news. But first, let me step back in time. June 2023, but we're not going back very far in time. We're going back 8 months, 6 to 8 months. Partnering with Nvidia, Snowflake aims at $100 billion generative AI market. Well, guess what? There he is. There's Frank Slootman and Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang holding a snowboard, which has got everybody's logo on it. And so they're talking about snowboarding together, doing things together, whatnot, and how they're both going to be together. What's significant? Nvidia's got these data centers powered by those Nvidia chips, and Snowflake has got all these tools to help you work with generative AI. The thinking was that customers of Nvidia that want to use their AI data centers would be using Snowflake as the storage and the manipulation engine. Ta-da! So they thought this would be a pretty good marriage, and we get more customers for Snowflake that are using Nvidia. So both of the market reacted pretty well. They're like, okay, that's good. That certainly is promising. Well, 8 months later, headlines in March. Snowflake's conservative FY25 guidance. Now let me stop right there. They're on a fiscal year. Their fiscal year ends in January of each year. So when they say fiscal year 25, they're really saying ending January 25, which basically means 2024 sales. Make sense? So you have to think 1 month and 1 year back for them. So Snowflake's conservative guidance for calendar year 24 and the CEO transition. CEO transition didn't give the market a lot of notice. The old CEO was beloved. Can't do that. Market gets a little bit fussy. Stirred the analyst debates. Now the analysts are like, what do I do with these guys? They've had kind of a flat year. Do I make them up or down? And optimism for AI innovation amid cautious forecast. So new CEO, cautious guidance, cautious forecast. So that's what the market wants. The market wants to know, I'm going to the moon, man. We're going to get in Elon Musk's rocket and we're going to go to the moon. Well, that's not what they got. Then Snowflake was downgraded at Morgan Stanley. Here's why. That's what happened. That's what happened. Then Snowflake, the stock tanked 20%. Remember, I'm talking this as you're watching right now in early March of 2024. 4. You're seeing the fiscal year 25 stuff for Snowflake, but they just had a 20% market drop because of conservative forecasts. The CEO is leaving. He's actually retiring. He's not leaving. There's no scandal. There's nothing going on. So this isn't good for Snowflake. And lastly, Motley Fool comes out again at the same time, says, hang on, guys. We think there's 3 artificial intelligence stocks that could be worth $1 trillion someday, and we think Snowflake's one of them. So what Motley Fool is saying, hey, maybe ignore all this. As long as the new CEO is as good as the old CEO, Snowflake's got stuff. They have a partnership with Nvidia. Let's give them time to show us what they can do. We think it could be $1 trillion market cap company. So in other words, Snowflake's in the middle of a slushy spring. See what I did there? So now what? Here's where it began. We're going to start with the founders. 3 guys, and I think they're all French. I know 2 of them are. So it was founded in San Mateo, California, which is right next to San Francisco Airport. So this is the Bay Area, the northern edge of the Silicon Valley in 2012. And Benoit Dagueville was an Oracle architect. Terry Kouranis was an Oracle architect, and Marcin Zukowski was with VectorWise. So these were smart guys working with Oracle and other companies that came together that says, hey, we think there's room for a very interesting cloud-based solution here that allows people to do things with data. Now, AI was coming, but it wasn't on the tip of everybody's tongue, because this now goes back 13 years ago, and away they go. So they were stealth for 2 years, and then they came out stealth with 80 customers. They were beta users, early customers. Hey, you can use this for a really cheap price. And they raised $26 million at that point and hired Bob Muglia to be their CEO. So they found a Microsoft CEO. So on paper, you got Oracle guys, 80 customers, 26 million raised. Seems like it's off to a reasonable start for a technology startup. And they're barely 10 years ago, keep that in mind, that they actually came out and said, here we are, we had 80 customers, and they allowed other people to start using it. So let's go through funding and management at this era. First of all, 2015, a year later, they raised another $45 million and launched officially the product that would be the Snowflake Cloud, the data warehouse. Warehouse where you store things, data warehouse where you store your data. Then 2 years later, now remember they had 2 double-digit millions, but nothing huge. But then in 17, they raised $100 million, and it was the next version of the cloud data warehouse. Then 2018, a year later, look what happened. So you see where this is going. 2018, 4 years after coming out of stealth, they raised $263 million at a $1.5 billion, and they joined the Unicorn Club. Unicorn, a startup that someone thinks, that is a investor putting a valuation on it, is worth $1.5 billion. Then they raised almost $500 million at a $3.5 billion valuation led by Sequoia in the same year. So as you can see, this is where the momentum was, whoosh, 4 years after getting started, people are like, oh, we get it. We know what's going on. And now 2018, that's immediately pre-COVID, but now AI is on people's lips talking about manipulating data. Data warehouses are big. There's a lot of things going on. Here you go. 2019, they recruited Frank Slootman, the CEO. He was with ServiceNow. ServiceNow, fantastic company, and he had taken them through their IPO, and they were doing very well. So this guy had driven companies that were going to be big, like Snowflake, in the tech center, and had the success of an IPO and great leadership under his belt. This was seen as a great, great hire. 6 years at ServiceNow and leading that IPO. So he had kind of retired in quotation marks, made a bunch of money at ServiceNow, and figuring out what he's going to do. Then 2020, they raised another $479 million, almost $500 million, and announced they had 3,400 customers. So look, between 2018 and 20, they raised $1.25 billion, really off and running. So what happens next? They're serving their customers. So they were generating at this time, now they've got a really mature product set out there that's really beloved. They have the majority of their revenue from customers that do one of three things. They buy resources and processing from Snowflake while their data is there. They get charged if they compute things, like you start flipping your data around and analyzing it, like with the Nvidia chipsets and everything. You get charged for what you store and for data transfer, moving data from here to there. So they're saying, hey, transfer the data in, we charge you for that, store it, we'll charge you for that. And then once it's there, you want to start doing computational things with that, like the example I use, where the marketing people want to know insights about the customer. The salespeople want to see segmentation of the customer. Finance wants to dive in a little bit as they make forecasts based on the customers, and everybody does it at the same time, computing the data that's in storage that was transferred there. Ta-da! That is how you're a customer of Snowflake. And this stuff is really strong and good for AI. Well, how did they become better? I thought Amazon stored stuff, Tom. I thought Microsoft and Google stored stuff. Well, yeah, they do. But what Snowflake did that was very clever, they made their data warehouse really fast, really easy to use, and cost-effective, and elastic. In other words, you could expand and contract the amount of storage you needed quickly. Most other data warehouses, not all of them, but most of the leading ones, were rigid in what you could and couldn't do, expensive, and often very difficult to manipulate and do. Snowflake said, let's make it easy, even for a mid-sized company that doesn't have 20 people in IT, to move their data on board, store it here, and start doing data flops and other things and analytics and analysis of that data. And guess what? It worked. This is exactly where people saw Snowflake as being, the fast, easy, cost-effective partner. But some people would say, no, too new. I'm going to use some of the established people. So they were overcoming that. But you can make yourself pretty legitimate by making yourself visible to that's right, public. As a public company, go have an IPO. So 2020, the IPO was a huge success. The first day pop was very significant. They sold 28 million shares and they raised $3.4 billion. $3 billion of that ended up in their bank account. Yep, because they sold into the market. Really mean. Now they've got, they had just raised $1.25 billion. Now, 1 year later, they got $3 billion in the bank. And it made Snowflake the largest software IPO of all time. Breaking a 13-year-old record was VMware, which was then owned by Dell, because Dell bought VMware, which had raised $1 billion. So at the closing of the IPO day, the price was $254 a share. Woo! $254, and the value was $70 billion. They are now a $70 billion in the stock market. It's time to go on a run and get more customers who see the legitimacy of Snowflake, and they don't see that just 6 years ago, 2014, they came out of stealth and were a relatively unknown company. And here we have CNN Business. I went back and found from 3:30 a.m. September 17, 2020. So this is the next day after the IPO. Snowflake shares more than double. It's the biggest software IPO ever. So they went out in the high 120s and they're all of a sudden 254 a share. Whoosh. So they're off and running, right? Well, let's go take a look at what off and running means. So 2020, there's the IPO. First, let's go run down the revenue line. 264 million. 2021, 592. Remember, these years is the January, so it's really the prior year. So 264 million year ending 2020, let's call that 19. 592 million in calendar 2020. 1.2 billion calendar 2021. 2 billion calendar 2022. And finally, 2.8 billion calendar 2023. Man, Tom, look at that. So you would think that they'd be profitable some way. Well, actually, they went from 2019 losing 348 million. 2020, they lost 539 million. 2022, they lost 679 million. 2023, they lost 796 million. In 2024, which would have been calendar 23, they lost 836 million. So guess what? Recently, you probably saw an announcement on the stock market that Lyft just recently went profitable. So these guys need to show software is normally crazy profitable. So these guys got to get to a scaling point where they can get to profitability. That's the issue. Because to go from 264 million from calendar 2019 to 2.8 billion in calendar 2023, that's 4 years. That's like, damn, that's 10x on your revenue line. Whereas you're continuing to bleed more at the net income line. Well, why is that? You got to get it together. So where are we going? Yep, investors are waiting for a comeback, and the comeback they're waiting for is they're waiting for that profitability. Look how they reacted. There's the IPO year. Yeehaw! Look where they are. They have another peak here. Here's COVID right here. There's COVID. So you might as well just look at this from here to here and take COVID out of it. But since that time, the market is kind of not very pleased and they're waiting for profitability, right? So take a look at this. On an all-time basis, if you had spent $100 on the IPO, right now you are at $53. So you've lost 22% of what you had. So for every dollar, you lost 22 cents. So that's no fun. That's not a return, especially when you're talking, coming up on 4 years since the IPO now. So we're asking ourselves the question, what is good with Snowflake? Now, let's go back and take a look at what happened this week. Remember I told you that they didn't really prepare the market for a CEO transition? And they didn't give very good guidance for the next year or two? Yep, I did say that. And we're going to show you how the market reacted. So nonetheless, they seem to have a bright future. Customers are beginning to work their data. Customers are doing 7 times the queries on their data. And this is information provided by Snowflake at an investor conference. And I took this slide from the slide deck from their investor conference. So this is as presented 2023 Q3 by Snowflake, saying customers are now paying Snowflake for 7 times the queries because they pay for that processing when they run it at the data center on the Snowflake cloud. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And they believe that the market's not just 140 billion that it was just a short time ago. They believe the calendar year 22, 2 years ago, they believe that the market is going to be 2 times as big. So in calendar 27, which is only, 3 years from now. So they're thinking our customers are doing more analysis of our data, the market's going to double. So you would seem that it's bright. Instead, they go to transition and guidance and they do this. So they announce that Slotman will be succeeded by Sridhar Ramaswamy. Not that Ramaswamy. Sridhar is a guy who was a Google ad chief that joined Snowflake after a $185 million purchase of Neeva, which was a startup that Sridhar Ramaswamy had built. And they said, hey, we bought this company, we like this guy, he's going to be the new CEO, Slotman is actually going to retire. Oh, okay. Then you get to guidance, but we're kind of conservative about 2024, which is our calendar 25, which is our fiscal year 25 ending in January. We're a little conservative about it, and we're not really sure that we can be as aggressive as we were in the past. Wait a minute, you just got finished saying your customers are doing 7 times the queries. You just got finished saying that the total available market is actually 2x over the next 3 years, 27. You just got finished saying all those things, and then you get conservative when you say a new CEO's out there. Guess what happens? The analysts react strongly as the market reacted. Ladies and gentlemen, this is 225. A minute later, this is 180. That stock dropped $45 overnight. 2 days. And now it's settled at 185. It's because they didn't like the transition. They like Slotman. He came from ServiceNow. He ran an IPO there. He ran a successful IPO here. But they're looking for growth. They're looking for answers. And you're running decks that say that your customers are doing 7 times the queries and the TAM is 2 times bigger. And you can't manage to give guidance that's a little bit more, optimistic. Well, maybe you don't have, maybe that's the right guidance they're giving. They just don't have faith in their sales in our sales team right now. But anyway, the analyst reacted very strongly, and Morgan Stanley threw a downgrade. Not some small analyst group. Morgan frickin' Stanley threw the downgrade at him. And so that's how the market responded. So what's next? They got to grow into their stock price. Now they're suffering where they got to regain confidence. The biggest software IPO of all time has to grow. And right now, they're 243 times forward earnings. So they're trading on the market 243 times forward. That's high, very high. Market share, they claim that they're somewhere between 1.5% and 2% of the market. So there's opportunity to exploit, especially if you're a big dog, and they are now one of the big dogs. And the Nvidia relationship was supposed to give you sale. Hey, these people want to use Nvidia. Great, store it on Snowflake. Let's work together. What a great solution. We've got all this benefits for them, and we're a fast, easy, cost-effective cloud to do it in. Great, that was supposed to be this big marriage. They need to go harvest that. You're going to make press releases, and you're going to be there with Jensen on stage holding up a snowboard with everybody's logo on it and declare that you're together, we are family. Then doggone it, you got to go make that work. So go cultivate that sales funnel that was supposed to be there. Profitability. You got to deliver OpEx and customer retention so you get earnings. OpEx needs to be efficient, and customer retention means they don't just use it one and done or 1 year and done, that they have multi-year subscriptions with their top customers. That's what has to happen for them to drive their stock price. And on top of this, all this needs to happen under the watch of the new CEO, Sridhar Ramaswamy, so that the market gives confidence in him the way it had at the IPO in Slootman. That's what they got to do. They have a great product, but you're a public company, and that's what public companies have to do to drive the price. Because the hype machine is over. You've been public for a while. We can see what's going on. We want to see you live up to your potential. And that's probably the highlight here. Live up to your potential under your new CEO. Restore not only investor confidence, but investor enthusiasm for the future. That is what I think has to happen at Snowflake. So what does that mean for you and me? You and I, running much smaller businesses, running things, what do we take out of this? Well, first of all, profitability. People with startups talk to me and they say quite often, Biz Doc, Tom, when should I be profitable? And I said, well, you should be profitable on a unit customer basis. So when you sell one thing to one customer, that has to be profitable. Now, that may not pay for all your OpEx, all your software designing and building, stuff you have to buy, but it needs to be profitable on an individual basis, on individual transaction. And know what the target is for profitability, know your formula. What is it that's in your formula that's going to scale and be consistent? And what is it do you have to pay for with multiple transactions, such as headquarters, marketing costs, your core staff, and things like that? Know your formula. Figuring out later, oh, no, we just got to get it sold. We got a bunch of customers are coming in and everything. Figuring out later, that's very risky. And leadership matters. You need to show leadership. Your customers need to have faith in you. Your team has to have faith in you. And any transition has to be managed very, very, very well. Obviously, they surprise the market a little too much. And they could say, well, we were providing guidance. We were talking that Slootman would someday retire. Yep, but there's an awful lot of people that were writing articles that say they did not have a lot of notice and that the suddenness was surprising. So whether that's right or wrong doesn't matter. The transition has to be managed and over-communicated so everybody's ready for it. Look how much time they put into Bill Gates' transition, into Jeff Bezos' transition. And some of you may not remember Bill Gates' transition to Steve Ballmer, because now even Steve has transitioned out. But Ballmer's transition was there. Even Sergey and Larry over at Alphabet, Google, they managed the transition. So you have to have market confidence in people that are coming up, and you have to do the same thing with your own team, whether you have 5 people or 55 people. Transitions have to be managed very carefully. Whether you're bringing someone in to a leadership position or you're stepping out away because you're retiring or whatever's going on. Lastly, customers. Narrow products are better than wide. It may be that Snowflake doing so many ancillary and additional things nowadays that maybe they got to narrow it up and just focus on that Snowflake cloud. I don't know if that's a strategic decision, but guess what? Questions like that get asked when you have stock performance like we just saw and you have market response like we just saw. And ladies and gentlemen, those are the lessons for you and me. You don't have to have an IPO and a $70 billion valuation at the end of your IPO to know you have to focus on profitability, to understand leadership matters, and that your customers and how they buy and why they buy and what they buy need to be also carefully served so you get momentum with more customers tomorrow than you have today. And those are the lessons for you and me, and that is the story of Snowflake. And we hope it doesn't melt. We hope Snowflake's going to be here and do well in the future, and I'm looking forward to it because I am a fan of the product. I think it's a best-in-class product, and I'm looking forward to them under new leadership demonstrating they can live up to the original promise of the largest software IPO in history that ended with that $70 billion valuation on day 2. I hope they live up to it. Okay, let's go wrap this up. I hope that unlocked your brain. I'm going to take my vault, which unlocks your brain, and I'm going to head back to the studio for some final thoughts. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was informative too. I hope it's informative more than just being enjoyed so that you and I can see how a $70 billion IPO company can have the same issues you and I have every day with somewhat smaller companies, but we can learn from them to make our companies better. If you like that case study, I hope you'll like these from the Biz Doc Classic Archive, and as you can see, one of them is a technology company just like Snowflake. Until next time, I'm Tom Ellsworth, the Biz Doc, and I hope I left you better than I found you.